I've seen a lot of really disturbing stuff throughout my life, but nothing from my past experiences could have stopped my hands from shaking so hard right now. I don't know what is going on at this school, in this God-forsaken room. I was never the type of guy who got excited for assignments. Whether it be hostages, bomb threats, shooters, the adrenaline rush only lasts for so long. The fear kicks in quickly after. Only got one life, after all. The worst cases are the ones with kids involved. I have a niece who's innocent and carefree beyond comprehension. My skin crawls thinking about her being exposed to those kinds of situations. Safe to say, I wasn't looking forward to whatever task lay ahead of us when we were called in. When we arrived, there were already 6 or 7 police vehicles parked outside, with a massive crowd of evacuated students standing outside. A lot of them looked a combination of utterly shocked and terrified, like they'd just been chased through a cemetery by a machine-wielding demon. As we entered the building, we were getting caught up to date by one of the police officers, but he was hardly any help. We don't know what to, they're in room 203, but we can't go in there. Can't go in there? What do you mean? Dex, our unit leader, asked him. He stumbled out a mostly incoherent response, skin pale and eyes wide as he did so. From his expression, you'd assume that he'd been to hell, or something of a comparable nature. Obviously, we weren't taking this lightly. We tried getting more information out of him, but he was adamant that he didn't know anything beyond the fact that we couldn't go into the room under any circumstances. All right, we'll figure it out, Dex ended up saying to him, realizing that trying to converse with the guy was getting nowhere. The officer simply nodded his head in response. Not confidently, though. We traversed into the school and up to the second floor, all alert as hell. In the utter silence, the place was rather eerie. Not that I ever liked school regardless. Once we ascended the stairwell, room 203 was just to our right. It wasn't really what we expected. No blood, no signs of a struggle, just a room. However, it wasn't silent in there. We approached the door cautiously, listening intently to what was going on inside. Sounded like a teacher giving a standard lecture, but obviously that wouldn't have warranted a school-wide evacuation and subsequent police backup. Jensen, another officer, tapped me on the shoulder, pointing to the crack underneath the door. I didn't see it at first, but a small stream of blood had begun oozing out from underneath. "Oh, shit," I thought to myself. Even though I was expecting something like this sooner or later, it was still jarring to see. I wanted to bust down the door right then and there, unleash a flurry of lead into the perpetrator's skull, but that was obviously impulsive. He might have had hostages or wired the door to explode upon opening or something of that nature. The police officer's words also stuck to my brain. Sure, he seemed like a maniac, but people don't just become that way through arbitrary means. He'd definitely seen something bad lurking behind the door, and I wasn't eager to find out what. Still, we had to figure out a plan. I tried listening closer in an attempt to discern what the person was saying. Now, I wasn't sure if they were speaking too quietly or if they were using another language entirely, but I couldn't make out anything explicit. But the more I listened, the more obscure their tone and speech patterns appeared to be. It wasn't like somebody giving a lecture at all. It was more akin to somebody monotonously reciting a series of separate and unrelated passages in sequence. Eventually, Dex stepped up, banging on the door. "What is your purpose here? Do you have any demands? At the moment, we are willing to cooperate, but we cannot do that if you don't communicate with us." No response. We tried negotiating for 10 minutes, but the speaker paid no attention to us, simply continuing their obscure diatribe to the audience of presumably captive and horrified students. "Fuck it," Dex said, frustrated. "I hate dealing with crazy fucks." He pulled out the radio and began talking to another unit. Soon enough, 2 more teams were on their way. One to monitor the windows from outside, and one to take a position in the room directly under 203. We were trying to consider every possible angle here. About 15 minutes later, the outside team showed up. Of course, there was nothing much to report on, given the fact that the windows were boarded up from the inside. Still, they had multiple snipers take vantage points. They were more or less there in case things went absolutely belly up. "This is some bullshit," Axwell, another officer, said. "If they end up never telling us anything, are we just gonna wait here forever? The kids might die of natural causes instead." I wasn't going to be the one to say it, but I sure was thinking it. There were no easy solutions for situations like these. Another 5 minutes elapsed before the ground team showed up, announcing to us over the radio that they were making their way to the room underneath. The radio crackled once again.
Hey, Dex?
Dex picked it up.
Yeah, something wrong?
I don't think we should go inside.
What? What the fuck are you talking about?
He was cut short by something rather jarring. It's not a noise, more so absence of noise. Whoever was inside the room had stopped talking. Dex put the radio down, ready to negotiate once again.
You finished? Can we talk now?
He asked. Suddenly, and wholly unexpectedly, the door opened just a crack. Thankfully, I was on the side closest to the doorknob, which meant I wasn't able to see anything inside, but as for the 3 officers who did, including Dex, well, I'm not quite sure what happened to them. I remember feeling a gust of boiling air seeping out and seeing some kind of deep purple glow emanating from within. At a point, I thought I could see Dex's eyes beginning to leak blood, but that may have just been my imagination. All I know is that I blinked a few times from the heat, and a few seconds later, 2 of the officers were gone and the door was closed, leaving Jensen by himself, kneeling on the ground while covering both of his eyes with his hands. We tried getting him to talk, but he wouldn't budge. In fact, he wouldn't move an inch from his bizarre position. At that point, I was beginning to panic hard. This evidently wasn't a normal situation at all. Lee was also frustrated, banging on the door and barking out orders as if whatever fucked up entity lurking in that room cared at all about his grievances. Then he made a drastic mistake. He took out his rifle and began breaking the door down with it. He managed to get about halfway through before succumbing to whatever fate Jensen had just before him. I turned around, seeing him also covering his eyes, frozen in the position on the ground. I tried not to look at the purple light flowing out from the holes in the door as I made eye contact with Axwell. We were both ready to get the fuck out of there. I took the lead, rushing toward the stairwell, but after about 2 seconds of running, I heard a scream from behind me. Some kind of large insect-like appendage shrouded in a dark violet smoke had burst through one of the holes. Grabbing him by the waist, I reckon that if I were a single second later, it would have done the same to me as well. I tried shooting at the thing, but my bullets simply bounced off it. It pulled Axwell in shortly after, demolishing the door with it. The room was completely open now, but I wasn't planning on investigating. Just like that, I was the last man standing. I bolted through the stairwell and through the first-floor hall, only to find the path to the nearest exit blanketed in the same smoke that was coming off the appendage. There was no way in hell I was going to try traversing through it. I picked up my radio and attempting to contact the floor unit instead.
Where are you guys? What's going on?
A shaky voice answered on the other end.
You better hide.
Hide?
I questioned.
Why don't we get our asses out of here instead?
I'm looking outside the window right now. Something's happening out there.
Given all the commotion, my mind had automatically filtered out the noise. I concentrated, hearing suppressed screams and sporadic gunshots emanating from beyond the halls of the school. Oh, come on, I muttered. I did as I was told, stumbling into a stray classroom and barricading the door behind me. The room I'm in now doesn't have any windows, so I can't tell what's going on outside. I've been checking for any news updates on my phone, but nothing. I'm also averse to using my radio to call for help because it may give my position away. I don't know what the hell's lurking out there in the hallways, but I can certainly hear something moving around. Not sure how far it is, though. I guess I'll just have to wait here until somebody comes for me. Let me tell you something about myself. I'm not an incredibly smart guy. The fact that I've even made it this far is something baffling to me. I mean, I've got endurance, I guess. Not a terrible shot, either. But when it comes to decision-making and thinking before I act, well, there's something to be desired there. While waiting in the classroom, I thought I was hearing something in there with me. Of course, I was already on edge, so this pushed me over my limit. I stood still, anticipating absolutely anything, and then I heard it. A sneeze. But my brain didn't register it as a sneeze until afterwards. At the moment, my frantic mind filtered it through as a threat. It'd come from a closet in the corner of the room, so, like the jumpy idiot I was, I fired off a reactionary shot, busting a hole in the wooden frame.
Yo, relax!
Whoever was inside shouted. They kicked the door open, hands up in a don't fucking shoot position. It was a kid, maybe around 15.
Oh, thank God!
He exclaimed upon seeing me.
Cops are here! First of all, I'm not a cop.
I responded. Second of all, get ready to run. We've made too much noise here. The kid was confused at first, but it didn't take long for him to realize what I meant. I could hear whatever atrocity that had been lurking in the halls now standing right outside, with nothing but a wooden slab separating us. I raised my rifle as it simultaneously busted down the door. It was an inexplicable entity. I'd always pictured what I believed demons or aliens or whatever other extra-dimensional creatures would look like in my head, an understanding cultivated through exposure to movies and video games. Still, seeing something like that existing right in front of your face was enough to make the idea of staying sedentary in a room cut off from the rest of the world for the rest of your life not so bad. I can't think of any pre-existing creature on Earth to compare this thing to. I'll just try to describe it. A mass of pulsating, fleshy blue spheres joined together atop a mechanical arthropod-esque body, with two bulky robotic arms ending in large claws. Surely some experiment gone horribly awry. Not sure why it was here, though. The kid behind me got a glimpse of it as well, rendering him utterly speechless. The robot centipede creature lurched forward, managing to slash open my protective vest like it was butter. Fortunately, the creature was also a glass cannon. I emptied about half my magazine into its bulbous head, busting open each of its spheres. It retracted erratically, swinging wildly and undulating its body, destroying the room in the process. I'm pretty sure that I'd blinded it or something.
Come on, kid!
I shouted at him. We ran out of the room as the creature continued its destruction. There were a ton of questions swirling around in my head, of course. The main one being, where the hell were we heading next? I took out my radio and asked the officer on the other end if things had settled down outside. No response. But from what I could hear, it sure as hell didn't sound like it.
Where are we going?
The kid asked. Beats me, I thought to myself. What are you still doing here? I asked him instead.
Well,
he began.
I was in the bathroom when it happened.
Okay, it still doesn't explain why I didn't evacuate with the rest of them.
Look, I was watching YouTube in there with my headphones in and didn't hear anything, alright? When I came out, everybody was gone. I was hearing weird shit coming from near the entrance. So I found a place to hide. It happens, you know?
Does it really? I thought, but I wasn't going to bother lecturing the kid about it. Not the right time or place. Also, I hardly cared, if I'm being honest. At the moment, we were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Inexplicable, unknown events were transpiring outside, while some kind of creature-feature ritual fest was going on inside. I reckoned that we simply needed to find another place to hide until everything blew over. If it was going to blow over at all. I did have my silent reservations about it. I didn't want to admit it either, but the kid being there made things so much more complicated for me. Yeah, not very heroic, I know. We turned a corner, almost running into somebody in the process. I had a mini heart attack as I began raising my rifle again, only to realize that it was another officer. I stopped in an attempt to talk to him, but the guy just ran past us, with a near catatonic-like expression on his face. Of course, that could only mean one thing. Something was chasing him. Begrudgingly, I took a quick peek down the corridor he'd come from, seeing a 7-foot and possibly muscular humanoid covered in purple flames slowly walking towards us. The ground beneath cracked with each one of its steps.
Where the hell do you think you're going?
It cackled, deep and grating.
You're just getting a preview of the new empire.
Jesus Christ! I didn't let the kid finish his statement, dragging him away and pushing him in front of me as I ran. As we navigated through the halls, I was beginning to hear a chorus of voices from the floor above. They sounded like the kids, but obviously not the regular kind. More so, ones that had been transformed through the means of otherworldly rituals. Truth be told, I was actually planning on quitting the force sooner or later. I had funds saved and a solid plan to go with it. I never wanted to be a career officer, but I just couldn't pull the trigger, and look where that reluctance got me. Right in the middle of who the fuck knows what. Eventually, we found ourselves in another classroom, once again barricading the door behind us. This one had windows, so I immediately ran over, trying to get a glimpse of what was going on outside. But I couldn't understand what I was seeing. It was pitch black. I checked the time. It was only 4:30 p.m. I assumed that the windows had been covered up, but that idea was quickly discarded when, through the apparent haze outside, a hand pressed up on the glass. A hand with a bloodshot eye at the corner of the palm. It pressed harder, causing a web of cracks to form. At that moment, it seemed like there was nowhere safe to go, nowhere to hide. I dragged the kid out of the room once again, only to find the colossal fireman waiting for us. He was grabbing the officer that had been running away earlier by the neck, choking the life out of him. I emptied the rest of my bullets into the blazing monstrosity, causing said monstrosity to flinch only slightly. He chuckled, low and throaty, as he dropped the officer's lifeless body to the ground.
Guns are something, aren't they? A shitty remnant of the old world.
He stepped forward, throwing a punch directly at me. Despite using both my forearms in a cross-guard position to block, the impact still sent me flying into the lockers, rattling my bones and singeing my uniform, along with the skin underneath. The kid screamed, darting away from the scene. A good decision at the moment, but at the same time, well, he was pretty much screwed. I wasn't in much of a better position myself, trying to find my feet after being staggered by a single punch. The fireman continued to approach me, eyes frantic with a grin that was beyond deranged as the flames roared across his body. I was still trying to pull myself together as he got within a few meters of me. But then, almost out of nowhere, his head was cranked to the side by a swift, blurry fist, sending him reeling. I looked over to the adjacent corridor, seeing a brawny figure wearing a suit of black body armor and a skull-like mask. He stood there, fist outstretched, with small purple embers resting atop his knuckles from the impact.
"Hey there," he said through the holes in his mask. "I'm the backup.